Greetings and welcome to the Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. We hope that you enjoy what you're about to see, and you can find us on the corner of Broadway and Church Streets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Or you can find us at bgmethodist.org and on Facebook at Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. So last Sunday we were starting kind of this Advent season with the first Sunday of Advent. We were talking about how, we have lots of joys and celebrations that come with the Christmas season, but Christmas season doesn't start until Christmas Day. Until then, we're in Advent. And Advent starts with, and it comes out of the painful prayers of the folks that are taking part in this story. And last Sunday, starting with the people of Israel, who were hurting and who were struggling and who were suffering and who were lifting these prayers up to God, and they were lifting up that special kind of prayer, that prayer of lament, where they gave it to God, where they didn't hold back, where they didn't keep anything in reserve, but they lifted that prayer up to God, hoping that He would hear, waiting to hear a response so that they would know that maybe there is some hope in the future. Time would go on, and for a while things would get a little bit better for Israel, but by the time we get to Jesus' time, they're still hurting, they're still suffering, they're still struggling, they're still lifting up these painful prayers to be heard by God. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know yet, because they didn't know the rest of the story, was that time was coming when their prayers were going to be answered. The time was coming when the words of the prophet Isaiah that we talked about last week that said, and a little child will lead them, that time was upon them. They wouldn't know this for a long time, that that's what had happened, but that's what was coming. That was what was being made ready. And so this morning we're taking another step in that story, another step in that story of preparation and expectation of getting ready for what it is that God is doing. But this step is a little bit different though. This step is one that was going to be kind of a challenge for the folks that are involved in this. Because it involves this guy named Zechariah. And it involves kind of a disruption of things, a disruption of life the way that he knew it. And we've all had those moments of disruption, haven't we? When we find ourselves in life where maybe we're content, maybe we don't have everything the way that we want it, maybe there's some things that we would like to be different, maybe there are some things that we would want to change if given the opportunity, but we're content, we're comfortable, we're accepting of where things are. It's not great, but we know it. We know what it is, and so we are content. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can be content. One of them, which is where we're going to get to today, is to be content and at peace, and accepting and knowing and trusting and having faith and not being uncertain about what is going on, to find that place of contentment. Another, though, is this content that we find ourselves in a lot of the time. We've all experienced this, and I remember one time in particular for me, this was when, back when I was at Wellington several years ago, and I had been there for a couple of years, and I was content. Things weren't maybe the way that I wanted them completely. There were some things that I would like to maybe have been a little bit different if they could have been, but I was content. Maybe just a little bit twitchy, though. Just a little bit, things could be a little bit different, that'd be okay. I mean, thinking that, I didn't ask to move, but if my district superintendent called and said, we want you to move this year, I'd have been like, okay, I can probably do that. But I thought, no, that's a phase. I'll get over that twitchy part. So I'm happy, I'm content, I'm comfortable, I know how this goes. And so I was okay. Until I get a phone call. Well, actually, I got two phone calls. The first one started off one morning early. I got a phone call from the school saying, can you come up and sub today? And I'd been subbing for them, once or twice a week for about a year or so at that point. I said, sure, yeah, I got nothing else going on today. So I went up and I subbed, and I was in the, excuse me, I don't know how you spell that, but that was where I was. But I was in the middle school, and I was subbing for some 7th graders, and this was the middle part of May, so they were taking finals. Now, the 7th graders I was giving this particular final to were a geography class, and so once I got them settled down, that took a little bit of work. They were taking their test, and they were okay, and I was kind of looking around hoping that they wouldn't look to the back of the room where there was still a great big map on the wall that would have helped them with their test. None of them figured it out. Thankfully, they're 7th graders. So we're in there, and my phone rings. Now, thankfully, I had turned it on to silent, so I mean, there's nothing worse than being a teacher and it being your phone that interrupts the classroom. So I was sitting there, my phone rings, and I know it because the screen lit up. There's no sound, no movement, none of that stuff, but the screen lights up, and on there is my district superintendent's name. Now, there is one thing that is guaranteed to put a Methodist preacher's blood pressure up faster than anything else, and that's when, between the months of February and May, you see your district superintendent's name on your caller ID, and you aren't expecting it. That will send me up. So I see it, but I can't answer because I'm in the middle of giving these kids a test. I can't step out into the hallway and take this. So he leaves me a message, and my phone would take the message and it would transcribe it as best it wasn't very good at this yet. And so, you'd have about 3 words you can understand and 10 words that didn't make any sense at all in there. And so, I read the message, I kind of got the gist. He said, call me. As soon as you get a chance. I'm going, oh man. So we get to the end of the day, I'm walking out to my car, pulling my phone out, dialing his number. I live 2 minutes away from the school. I could have waited till I got home, but I couldn't wait. So I call him, and the first thing he says to me when he picks up on the other end, he says, don't worry, I don't want you to move. I said, that's good, my blood pressure just dropped. But he did say, I want you to consider something. I've got a church that isn't going to have a pastor after when we kind of start this news cycle. And he said, what would you think about taking it on? And so that was how, after I'd been in Wellington for 2 years, that I added the Hardin Church to my responsibilities. He called me then, and we got all that worked out. But that was going to be a pretty big disruption. And the question I had was, well, how can I know that this is going to work? These 2 churches were close enough that they could be together, but far enough apart it was going to be a little bit of a drive. I didn't know how this was I going to be able to make this work? How is it going to go? All of these things, all these questions running through my head. How can I know? How can I know that this is going to work? That was the same place that Zechariah found himself in. Zechariah, who was a part of the tribe of Levi, and which meant that the tribe of Levi, if you remember, they're the ones that are responsible for the religious things at the temple. They're the ones that are responsible for the sacrifices and the rituals and the services that Moses goes into great detail in Deuteronomy, explaining what they are and how they're made and all of that stuff. Excuse me. They are the ones that are responsible for all of that. Now, for as big as the temple was, it wasn't that big for all of the members of the tribe of Levi. Which meant that most of them were just like everybody else. They had jobs, they worked, they took care of their families, they did all these things. They were like regular people, except that there was going to come a time, especially for Zechariah, where this was going to be kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing, where he was going to be at the temple doing all of those things. Now, for some context, that would be like the local parish priest up in Bevier, Missouri. If you don't know where Bevier is, it's outside of Macon, off of Highway 36. It's a suburb of Macon. It should tell you something about the size of it. It would be like that local parish priest doing mass at the Vatican. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that Zechariah was going to have. It was his turn to go up and to be at the temple to do these things, to wear the garments, to make the sacrifices, to do the rituals, to do all of those things, to literally stand in the Holy of Holies and do this. Of course, that's the time when the angel Gabriel decides to come and make an announcement to him that his world is going to be disrupted. Zechariah was content. He was okay with this life. There were some things that they would like to have been different. They would love to have had a kid, but they were older. They knew that was probably out of the cards for them at this point. There were some things that they would like, but they were content. A little twitchy maybe, but they were content with the way that things were. But then this announcement comes. And the announcement that comes feels a little bit like this.
Excuse me. Who are you?
Rubius Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. Of course, you know all about Hogwarts.
Sorry, no.
No? Blimey, Harry, didn't you ever wonder where your mum and dad learned it all?
What?
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
A wizard. And a thumping good one, I'd wager, once you trade up a little.
No, you've made a mistake. I mean, I can't be a wizard. I mean, I'm just Harry. Just Harry.
Well, just Harry.
Again, now, Zechariah probably didn't have any idea who Harry Potter was. But the effect was the same, though, that he was having. Harry's looking at this going, wait, I'm a what? I love those lines. I love those words. You're a wizard, Harry. I can't say it with his accent, but then he is shocked, like, wait, no, I'm just Harry. I can't be anything special. He would, if you've read the books or seen the movies, you know that his home life wasn't great. But he knew it. That's what he knew. That's what he was content with it. A little switchy, wishing some things would be different, but that's what he knew. That's what he was comfortable with. That's where he was content with that. And here comes this big announcement that's going to change his world. Zechariah is doing the same thing. He's going, wait, I'm just Zechariah. That's just Elizabeth. Have you seen us? We're old. We can't have kids. That's not how things work. And the angel is like, yeah, no, that's how things work. You're about to find that out. Zechariah, in verse 18, asks this question. He says, how can I know? How can I know that what you're telling me is true? How can I know that this thing you're going to give to us that is like literally the answer to our prayers that we didn't think was going to happen, the thing that was causing us all this twitchiness, how can I know that that is going to be real? I'm just Zechariah. This isn't something that happens to us. That's when the angel responds to him, and because we know the rest of the story, we read the angel's response in one way. The kids, are going to act that story out for us. How it all goes next week for us. I told the folks down at Oak Grove, because some of the folks that were there had literally been in that same Christmas program when they were kids. They're like, you all know how that story goes. You have acted it out many times before. We know how the story goes, and so we know that. So we take what the angel says to Zechariah as being punishment for this, but really, what the angel was doing was giving Zechariah what he needed in that moment. The angel says to Zechariah in response to that question, he says, know this, what I have spoken will come true at the proper time. But because you didn't believe, you will remain silent, unable to speak until the day when these things happen. And that's just what happened. Zechariah, coming out of the temple, couldn't speak anymore. He was mute for the next 9 months and a few days, until the time comes when they're going to name the child. Now they come in for this formal moment when they're going to name the child. Everyone else is in one group here. Zechariah is probably over by himself somewhere because he came out of the Holy of Holies and he was mute. That wasn't something that was normal. Everyone's looking at him going, what did you do? And so he's kind of off on his side, and everything is revolving around Elizabeth saying, what name are you going to give him? She says his name is John. And today, some things never change in 2,000 years. Everyone has an opinion on what you should name your kid. Because everyone else looks around him and goes, you can't name him John. No one in your family is named John. That's not how this works. Then they look over at Zechariah, to get his response. And this is the one bit of attention they're going to pay to him at this point. They say, what's his name really supposed to be? They give him something to write with, and he says, his name is John. And at that moment, then Zechariah could speak. Then Zechariah could speak. Because now Zechariah is different. He's content. But he is content in a different way. He is at peace with what has gone on. He is at peace because the twitchiness is gone, the uncertainty is gone. His question that he had, how can I know, has been answered. He knows that this is true and good and right, but he needed that time. Growing up, there was a thing that we were told all the time, that you should think before you speak. This is the advice that Zechariah was being given. Now, you all have heard me give another version of this that's more important for me because that's what gets through my hard head, and that is better to keep your mouth shut and be thoughtful than to open it and remove all doubt, or somewhere along that way. I love that one because that's the one that sticks best with me. But sometimes we need that time. Sometimes we need that space. Sometimes we have to listen. Because we got to remember that when God is doing this, when God is putting all of these events together, it's during what we call now the season of Advent, a time of preparation and expectation, building to that Christmas day. When big announcements like this happen, they aren't done in a vacuum. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on around it. And the angel is telling Zechariah, wait. I know it's hard. I know you don't want to, but be patient. That's the key. And most importantly, listen. Because there is still more for you to know, but you've got to be ready to hear it. And so Zechariah can't talk. So Zechariah can hear and listen and come to that understanding and know that what he is being told is true and right and good. And so he is able to find that peace that he couldn't find anyplace else. To be content and be at peace with what it is that has happened. My prayer for us as we go through this Advent season and all of the Advent seasons of our lives. Formally, we celebrate this season the 4 Sundays before Christmas gets here, but we all go through lots of different Advent seasons of preparation and expectation for big things that are coming. Whether it's at Christmas or any other time of the year, my prayer is that during these times that we're able to stop and to listen. And my prayer is to say that may you be at peace and not be twitchy. And may we take that same peace out to a world that needs it, that's hurting and struggling, that is in need of that kind of contentment that only comes from God, that lets us be content and at peace and sure and certain of what God is doing. May we take that out to a world that needs it and can understand it, and can take that with them and help them to overcome the trials and struggles that they face. And let us do that in the name of the child that is coming, in the name of Jesus Christ.